Come on.
And welcome back to the only podcast produced by three two-time winners of IMSA Spirit of the Race Award. You're listening to the Check Engine Podcast. We're hosted on Anchor.fm and we're streamed worldwide on all those platforms you use to listen to your favorite podcasts. My name is Nick. Joining me as they do every week are my two trusty co-hosts, Andrew and Tristan. Guys, how did you spend your 4th of July weekend?
Hiding inside from the hate ball in the sky.
Yeah, a lot of the same. I grilled, and I don't know why, because that was just asking to die.
Same. Did you actually use a grill, or did you set the meat out on the driveway?
Might as well have. I
just don't want to hear you complain when it's 10 below in February.
We love that.
Right. That's not my problem. I also now have heated seats, so...
Spoilers.
Yeah, we'll get into that later. Yeah, but it was hot. It was 90 plus pretty much the entire weekend here in Wisconsin. I don't know where you guys are.
Just listeners. Unrelenting sun.
Yeah, it was really something. I went for a run on Saturday morning. Yeah, it was Saturday morning. And I was like, this will be great. I'm super clever here. I woke up at like 6 and I was like, oh man, I'll beat it. I'll beat the heat. Nope. Not even a little bit.
Not even close.
The heat beat you.
Yeah, there was not one tiny bit of air movement. Even running did not cause the air to move.
Does that make you feel insignificant?
It's just a horrible feeling.
Yeah, I was working out in the yard, also in the morning, trying to dig in some drain pipe and trench it underground so it's not just running across the garden. And I worked for 3 hours and went about 8 feet because death was imminent. And then I went inside.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I didn't have as much of a problem with the heat, but
he doesn't, so there you go.
There it is. So we spent, let's see, what we do. Friday we had a outdoor meal, grill out. Saturday, Claire and I actually wandered around Cedarburg for the day, which is actually really, really nice. The cream and crepe place where we ate, Tristan, was closed for the 4th, but was like when we were up there, we've been talking like, hey, this is actually kind of a cool town, maybe for not just a rendezvous point, maybe to actually wander around. And there was like an outdoor wine tasting going on, obviously all socially distanced, at least there compared to here where we are. It seems like that area actually gives a fuck.
Yeah.
So definitely more masks being worn, all the businesses adhering to social distancing if they were open. Polite requests for masks, like it's not forever, it's just for now. It's said on one door. Mm-hmm. Like it was.
No, sorry. He just reminded me. I went to downtown Waukesha earlier, and there's a store that I think they may have, sadly closed permanently during the coronavirus thing. But so there's a big closed sign on the window, and above that it says Hope and Dreams. And it just looks like both Hope and Dreams are closed.
Neither are open right now.
Exactly.
Neither are seeing customers. Metaphor for 2020 right there.
Exactly. It's very appropriate. I know what they were going for, but they ended up being more horrifyingly accurate than they intended.
Crazy. Crazy. Today was a tough day to get back to work. I don't know about you, Andrew, but Tristan and I, our place of employment observed the 4th of July on Friday.
Yes.
So we had a 3-day weekend, and everybody was hungover in my meetings today. Like, no one would say a thing.
Really?
It was pretty funny. Yeah.
On the third day of the weekend?
Everybody have anything to add? Crickets. Every single call today.
I wonder if it was just major depression simply because, a 3-day weekend feels incredible, but then this is, the end of the weekend. That's what it was. Like, we were joking it was hangovers, but really everyone was just super bummed that it was Monday.
Just an emotional hangover.
Yeah.
That I definitely had, for sure.
I have light at the end of the tunnel, though, because I have another short week, because I'm taking this coming Friday off to go up to our favorite place, Road America, for the IndyCar weekend. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Woo!
You are a bold man.
Yeah, I ended up being out today, but that was for other personal reasons, unplanned. So,
hey, masks will be worn, at least by Claire and myself.
You're going to be our guinea pig, basically, to see if it's even worth attempting
for IMSA. Yeah.
Yeah. Going to anything. I'm at my current plan. I'm willing to be convinced into going, but my current plan is just to skip everything. Cause I think, all of this that we're seeing now, all of this, devil may care attitude will absolutely come back and just fuck us at some point. That's what I firmly believe.
Well, it already is.
Worse. That's what I'm saying. Like, right now, it's
dinner.
Yeah.
Dinner and a nice drink right now.
Yeah.
We're about to get stuck with the check and then also other things.
Yeah, exactly. I think Tristan's exactly right.
Yeah, we'll see. I think Road America has enough space where you can spread out. We've all been there. We know how big the property is.
That's true.
Yes, I agree with that. I am, like you said, Andrew, I am ready to be convinced that I will be able to go, but I will probably skip things like the grid walk and things of that nature.
They're not going to do that, are they?
It's hard to tell. IMSA just kicked their season back off over the weekend, and there were no fans at Daytona, so...
Right.
Yeah.
They kicked it off.
Who knows if we'll even be invited?
Yeah. But yes, I am not going to do any sort of grid walking. I'm also going to be very careful even this weekend in the IndyCar weekend if I want to go to the paddock just to see how many people are there.
Yeah, for sure.
Because that's where the bottleneck is. That's like the only spot at that track besides like maybe a line for a bathroom somewhere where like there is a bottleneck. It's just because it's between the haulers there. It gets kind of skinny.
Yeah,
I'll be bringing my own bathroom.
So, but yeah, I'm planning on going, probably spending most of the weekend at the places we normally don't hang out in, just because they're like the more unpopular spots, just because I know there's gonna be less people there.
Yeah. So. And, that's kind of the thing. Like you keep saying, the size of that property, the track is huge. So the area surrounding it is also huge. And really a simple reduction in the number of people who go could be enough to make it worth it. And it wouldn't have to be much. It could be 15% would make a huge difference.
It would look deserted. It would look absolutely deserted because of the size of the place. But I'm willing to bet that 90% of the people who do go are going to try to cram themselves into that one grandstand in turn 5.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So we'll see what happens. But yeah, anyway, light at the end of the tunnel for me because I'm only have 3 days left to work this week. Woo!
Hooray.
Yeah. Anyway, what are we talking about this week, Andrew?
That's the big question, isn't it? We're gonna do something we haven't done in a while and just see what each of us has to bring to the table. I beautiful minded something. Tristan, he already announced, but he has a new car, so I'm sure we'll get a thorough review on that. There's been tons of stuff in racing. There's been F1 action and the conclusion of that protest, or I guess the refiling of the protest by Red Bull about the Mercedes adaptable suspension piece. Lots of racing stuff. So I'm sure we'll hear about that too.
Yes.
Lots of racing stuff. Yeah. I have the F1 race recorded. I did not watch it yet. I do, social media. I know who won and everything, but I can't offer like a rundown of how things went on Sunday, just because I didn't watch it yet. So,
well, we'll see. It's going to be a mix. It's going to be a mix and match.
So, yeah, it's going to be a little mishmash of everything. So, because of that, we're really not going to have pace laps because this entire thing is basically pace laps. So, we can just kind of dive into it. I think, Andrew, it'd be appropriate to start with the newest vehicle addition to the Check Engine podcast family.
Mm-hmm.
This is, in fact, a car podcast. So,
True.
Tristan, break the news.
So, I will say that our previous episode was definitely a spoiler. Discussing the Subaru Outback Onyx XT. And also anybody who pays attention to our social media, you also got a special sneak peek. So you should definitely follow us because you'll get stuff like that. I did in fact purchase a 2020 Outback Onyx XT in black. I think they call it black silica. It's a kind of a mica fleck paint scheme, and I love it. That's the end of the review. Thank you for coming.
Great. Actually, I have a question. Is about the Onyx thing specifically. Is that the package that gives you the paint and the darker wheels, or is Onyx something else?
Both. So it is the package that gets you the blacked out wheels. Mm-hmm. But it is the black paint is available on a bunch of different trims. However, it gets you black wheels, blacked out badges, and blacked out grille. So, and it also comes with their unique StarTex interior fabric, which is quite nice. Feels like kind of smooth microfiber. Doesn't get too blisteringly hot in the sun. Does get hotter than probably like tan cloth.
Sure.
But tan cloth is tan cloth. If you accidentally spill something even as benign as like butter, which would be the same color as the tan cloth, it will still stain. So this is not that. However, it's also not the expense and thigh blistering temperature or freezing temperature of true leather seats. So it's actually kind of a nice compromise, and especially for someone with at least aspirations of outdoorsy stuff. I don't have any. I tried the Jeep, drove it off road in the sand. That was fun. Never had any, ambitions for rock crawling or the Rubicon or everyone's favorite Moab. So, I don't have any delusions of off-road grandeur, but I would like to be able to, throw a dog in it after the dog park. And not have to worry about if some mud gets under the seat protector, or if we throw a bunch of dirty camping gear in it, can I just wipe it out? Great, no problem. So perfect for people with at least aspirations as low or high, depending on who you are. If you're a hardcore off-roader dude, probably low. If you're the average person buying an Outback, actually probably higher than yours. Aspirations for outdoor use. And I gotta say, the best part of this vehicle is the motor.
Yes, I assumed it would be.
That was the reason for you geeking out at the Chicago Auto Show. So waiting for you to discuss the motor.
So this event, I don't know if we discussed this in detail in our auto show episode, but we were rolling through and I was like, oh, look at Outback. And I'm like, walking past and I'm kind of looking at the sticker, seeing how things had changed since I owned mine. And I was like, 260 horsepower. And I to kid in a candy store, both palms on the glass, face right up against the sticker, reading more details to find out that it is indeed a 2.4 liter turbocharged engine, the same one they use in the Ascent, which is basically like driving a small all-wheel drive Continent. So not something that I was looking forward to purchasing. Far too large, even for me. But then they crammed that engine in the front of an Outback. And I was like, I made the promise. I said, man, if they make this, because at the time it said concept vehicle on the windshield, I said, if they make this, I'm going to have to trade in my WRX and get one of these. So, long story short, they did and I did.
So, you made good on your promise rather quickly.
Yeah, I did.
Days.
Yeah, as in days. Yes, I went to, no endorsement implied, etc. But I went to the local little guy Subaru dealer near us, which is funny to say considering they're like a multi-mark dealership that has a ginormous Honda wing and a ginormous Mopar wing, but their Subaru dealer is relatively small compared to the other big guys in town, and they had one in stock in one of the colors I would have accepted, which was the black, the gray, or the green. And I thought to myself, I really love the people I went to for my previous two Subarus. I really like to go there, but they don't have one. So I'll go here and test drive one. Just test drive. No problem. Right? Well,
that's how it always starts.
That's what they always say, yeah.
Well, and the thing is, I've done that before, where I have just test driven and gone, nah. I think both of you have been party to those trips.
True. I do that all the time.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes you go not even looking to buy that same car at any point, and often you go without looking to buy it from the dealer you test drive it from. And I was like, but I'll be nice. Our salesperson, Kay, was very, very lovely, and decided to pull as hard as she could for, the best deal she could find, which was fabulous. And that's really what sold me. They, even the other big dealer that I was looking at going to, there were going to be fees and overages and extra months of payments to be made on my lease. And, basically when approached over the phone, they're like, oh, God, no. Are you kidding me? We're back ordered, 2 months on these vehicles. You're going to pay sticker. They got me out of my lease at no cost to me and knocked $5,000 off the sticker.
Wow. Holy shit.
So kudos, Wild Subaru. You did an excellent job. And I have gotten to do a couple things with it. We took it to our first, Crunchy Granola outdoor adventure, upon which Jessica and I went on a hike. And then I actually took it out to Madison today to help out my dad with dropping off the van and a couple other things. And it does surprisingly well on the back roads. The center of gravity on these cars is low. People make a joke about, it's a Boxer, it's got to have that low center of gravity. But I think that the other thing is that, and Andrew, you pointed it out when I sent you pictures. You're like, that's just a wagon.
Yup.
I don't care what Subaru calls it. It's just a wagon. And that's, I think, the other contributing factor. Yes, it's higher off the ground than a regular wagon, but it doesn't have that big square shape and high center of gravity in just the body alone that things like the Forester and the Ascent have. So it drives really well for how big it is. And really well overall. I'd say it even compares well to some smaller things I've driven. In that size vehicle, the engine is fantastic. It doesn't have that. Even in stock form, the WRX motor almost has too much power for a car that light. You get all sorts of wheel spin and other, misbehavings when you get aggressive with it because it's almost too much already. And I know anybody from, Subi Speed or Cobb will be like, what's wrong with you, you heathen? But this car gets up and goes if you get on it. I've been trying to stay off of it because it's not broken in yet. But the grins might be worth the miles off of its life. So when you get on it, it goes. It does not wait. It does not hesitate. It just scoots, and all without any fuss. It's glorious. And it surprises people. I was being harassed by a young man in a Saab 9. Oh, so like that. What was that weird SUV? The big SUV they made, like the 97X or something like that.
Something like that.
And I got honked at because the person in front of me wasn't moving. They turned right. People in front of me, and this guy decided, oh, well, now there's nobody in front of him. I'm going to pass him. No, he wasn't. So, so it's got Tristan's patented, road justice quotient. And what's more, it's large and scary looking.
True.
Compared to the WRX, which is silver and not very big. So it serves that well. On the freeway run out to Madison, it got awesome gas mileage. It got like 30 miles a gallon on that run on regular gas.
Wow.
So it's economical, it's fun, it's got a ton of space, and for the first time I think ever in my life, I splashed out for a non-base model because it's the only way to get that turbocharged engine in it. And it's got a lot of fun doodads, built-in wireless charger, CarPlay, the Subaru's EyeSight driver assist system, which is very good. You can choose how obnoxious you want it to be, and I've kind of chosen middle obnoxious. I get a lot of lights and a lot of stuff on the dashboard, but I've turned off a lot of the dinging and buzzing. But have, however, left in place things like the rear braking assist or rear cross traffic. Andrew, you'll be familiar with why I might need that.
Indeed.
People in parking lots like to hit me while I'm backing out of things.
You might get blamed for something that was not in any way your fault.
God, still salty about that, by the way.
It wasn't. It whatever.
Yeah,
it just wasn't. But it's fine.
I was back.
We have another episode down the pike. We can talk about story time. Let's save it for that.
Yeah. We'll save that for story time. For those of you who are not in the know, just know that parking lots and I don't get along because people are jerks and drive way too fast. And the front collision avoidance, I actually had it go off at its second level. It'll tell you first, hey, maybe there's something in the road, and then the second level is it makes a lot of lights and a lot of noise. But then as you get closer to said object, if it actually isn't anything that you're going to hit, it lets up. And actually, I got it to go off with a dead raccoon. To be fair, it was a really big dead raccoon, and I could definitely see why it would think I was going to hit it, because I don't think I could have gone over that in the WRX. I think it would have been taking my front splitter off on the WRX. So, so a very large dead raccoon, and it was like, oh God, look, there's something in your way, but then it didn't apply the brakes right away. So, it's got a lot of safety features because it's, for the most part, other than like the adaptive cruise control, it doesn't use like sensors and stuff in the bumper. It uses all cameras. So unlike Nick's issue on his rental Nissan, it's hard to have them be totally non-functional. It'll warn you if like all the roads around my house, like there's not a center line. It'll tell you, I can't really see those lines. I'm not going to be able to give you the lane keep assist. And it'll tell you that, but it won't make a big deal out of it. So yeah, I'm not going to lose a sensor in the bumper and have it bark at me the whole time like you had, Nick.
Yeah.
So it actually uses binocular cameras to do a lot of this stuff. So, and it is very nice to have for insurance purposes.
Right?
Insurance from this to the WRX is a big difference.
I can only imagine.
What I liked about you sent me pictures middle of last week, or right after you got it, and we were discussing through I think our Teams chat or whatever. And I don't remember the exact wording you used in your message, but you said something about how you always kind of felt like a poser in the WRX.
Yeah, I want to talk about that too.
And so like when I was talking, I told my parents this weekend that you got this new vehicle, And they're like, well, what did he get? And I, told him, and I said, Tristan's back home where he belongs. In a way.
Yep.
I think that's the best part of this whole thing is that this is the type of vehicle that fits you the best. And you were able to get back into it.
Turbo all-wheel drive wagon. To quote Han Solo, Chewie, we're home.
Don't quote the new Star Wars movies.
That one's fine.
Okay.
That was the nostalgia trip, but otherwise inoffensive one.
Fair enough. Just trying to save you from yourself, man.
So no, that was but that's basically it. Like, the Outback never felt like it was quite enough. The WRX felt like it was way too much. I felt like I could make use of that car, but I never felt it was for me. Mm-hmm. And I had the skills and the knowledge to drive it the way it was meant and wants to be driven, but I never felt like a member of that crowd.
That's not actually that fun. I mean, this is probably a separate topic for a whole different episode, but it's actually not that fun to drive a little car with a ton of horsepower that you can't ever use. It's no fun at all.
Yeah, like this Outback, I can wind it up and let it go and use 100% of that go fast pedal going down the entrance ramp, and it just is fast. It's not like a douche move. It's just like, I felt like whenever I dumped the gas on the WRX, it always felt like I was making a point, and I never was, except for like twice.
Well, because sometimes you just had to show that asshole.
Yeah. Mainly, I'm looking at you, guy in the truck.
Sorry, I'm picturing showing your asshole while you're driving.
Yeah. Wait, what?
Anyways.
Well, that took a turn.
So no, I'm home. It's very amazing. It's the only car that I have purchased, and I'm already looking at what the factory extended warranty options look like, because they're well regarded. The Subaru ones actually are. They seem to be a good value, right up there with things like Apple Care or whatever. But it's I could definitely see myself wanting to keep this long enough that it would be worth getting myself to 100,000 miles under warranty or something.
Yeah.
It just felt right. Like, I got in it, I took it for a test drive, and I was like, yep, this is mine. And the good news is, since I purchased this vehicle, I've seen everything from people younger than myself driving Outbacks to, we were driving the other day, and Jessica's like, oh, look, another black Outback. And I was like, hey, look, hey, friend. And it was like a 90-year-old woman.
Well, yeah, I mean,
I can drive this forever now if I want to.
You can.
So, very, very happy, pleased with my purchasing experience, and nothing but good things to say, except for one thing.
Uh-oh.
I don't know where to put my phone.
What do you mean?
Yeah, what the hell?
So I carry cards in my phone case, because I don't always pick up my wallet when I leave,
gotcha.
But I always pick up my phone. So as like a backstop for myself, I carry my ID and a credit card in the phone. In the phone case, there's actually slots for it. So I can't use a wireless charger because I don't want to erase my cards and set the phone on fire. So I think it was designed with the thought in mind that when you're driving, you slide your phone into the slot where the wireless charger is, and if you're plugged in, it just doesn't use the wireless charger, but it still sits there. I can't do that. Right. So there's a pocket in like the knee bolster, but it's on the passenger side. So I got to reach all the way around the center console and drop my phone in it. You could put it in the cup holder, but it's me. When do I not have a cup in the cup holder? So the only thing I could think of was a giant suction cup to the infotainment system, but then that would cover up the simply glorious iPad-sized CarPlay I get because I'm on the iOS 14 beta.
Nice.
So finding a place for the phone is still a question, but other than that, everything is wonderful.
Nice.
Awesome,
And my
man.
hitch arrives on Thursday.
Sweet.
Oh, right. Yeah, I forgot about that.
So, which was another debate between Andrew and I.
It wasn't a debate. That's not what happened. Okay, listen. Here's what happened. Tristan texted me saying that he wants to get a hitch on his car, but can't decide if he wants to do it himself. And I was like, okay, I probably wouldn't. You literally just bought a brand new car. Why don't you do it yourself? And he's like, well, the Subaru dealerships, they just do it wrong. Like, they break them all the time. And there's just tons of people driving around without a rear bumper. I'm like, okay, no, there are not a ton of people driving around without a bumper. But plus, that's like the benefit, right? If you get it at the dealership on your new car, they're going to fix it until they get it right. Because it's a new car and it's their parts and it's their warranty. Like that is the whole.
Yep.
That's the purpose of the.
Yeah, but if they break it and then they can't get parts to fix it for months, and then they have to do it 2 or 3 times.
Do you really think do you honestly believe that's what's happening? That's just a super common problem all across the nation. Millions of Subaru drivers on their top selling model are driving without bumpers for months on end. Do you truly believe that?
Well, first of all, I don't think that too many of them are optioning the factory hitch. And
I have no idea.
Because it's not a factory option. It all has to be dealer installed. There's also a very large back order on them. And so I think that
the install.
No, but I'm saying that I think that because this car is new and there was a back order on the hitches, we're just now starting to install them at some dealers if people want the hitch. I think there's a lot of slices you take off the millions of Subaru owners. It has to be the 2020 model, and the people have to have wanted a hitch. And of the people who wanted a hitch, they had to have had it come in from back order. So I think the population is smaller than you might assume. And
I think the population is next to zero. I think 3 people on Reddit across the country probably had problems with a dealership, which seems more likely than this being a realistic risk, like a problem enough to be considered a risk. I think it probably happened, but I think it's far more likely to not happen for any number of the reasons you mentioned. Plus, as much as it's a super 90s thing to make fun of your car dealership, but dealer techs on average are better now than they ever have been. It's not that they don't make mistakes. It's just that there's actually some care put into training people, especially people who deal with new cars.
Yep, I'm 100% on board with Andrew on this one. I think it's worth the chance and just let the dealer do it for you.
Well, okay, but hold on. No, I forgot this part. So we get through that whole aspect of the discussion, and then Tristan goes, well, I don't want the factory one anyway because it's the wrong size. Then why did you present it like a choice?
Because I didn't present the choice that you thought I did. I said, do I have someone install it for me, or do I do it myself?
But you didn't explain that it was a different size.
Right. My intention was never to get the factory hitch because it's a 1 1/4 inch hitch. Who the hell uses a 1 1/4 inch hitch? Nobody.
That's not true. Everything that fits in the tow rating, probably.
No, I'm talking about like accessory manufacturers. Like, you want to buy a bike rack for that tow hitch? Get a 1 1/4 inch to 2 inch adapter and dangle it an extra 4 inches off the vehicle and have it. You've seen it, like cars with bike racks on the back. If they are not back there wobbling around, the bikes are on a 2 inch hitch. If they are out there wobbling around, they're on a 1 1/4 inch to 2 inch adapter, and it looks like it's just going to snap off. So, yeah, if I want to buy the custom tooly stuff that Subaru sells that fits in their 1 1/4 inch hitch, then I'm good. If I want to use anything else or any of the gobs of towing equipment we have for the 2 inch hitch that we have on the van, I got to get a 2 inch hitch anyway. So the question was never, do I take it to the dealer to do it? it came up as kind of a side thing because and also gross, no. And I also don't even like where they put the hitch. They have to cut like a half circle in the bumper to put the hitch on. It's like, why?
Because America, my dude.
You don't have to cut a hole in the one I'm putting on.
Well, yeah, but also ease of use. I'm sure it's more efficient or faster to do it this way. I don't know.
I don't know.
Or maybe it's designed for the international market and the stupid American bumper is the reason.
It could be, and I don't know why they don't just get a different bumper to put on too. Great, you want the hitch? Here's the kit. It includes a new bumper and the hitch, and it's pre-cut. Everything's perfect. It comes right out of the middle of the bumper like you see on every other SUV, including the Ascent. There's a little knockout in the bumper that if you want the hitch, they just knock out the square in the hitch and square in the bumper and put the hitch on. Why are we cutting material to put on a factory hitch?
I don't know. Email Subaru. You might get a free Subaru.
Well, probably not.
I said might.
Well, yeah, I guess technically I might be able to get one. But yeah, so, I decided to go with an aftermarket one. It's 6 bolts to put it on. I think we're going to be okay.
Great.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
Yes, I'm very excited. That does bring me to the concern I have, which is one of my news articles for the day. It's concern in the same way people, have been concerned about Apple, which is to say they're used to something very different from them, and things have changed. And okay, it's still a perfectly good choice kind of thing.
I do not understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I don't know.
Wait for it. Is that Subaru has seen a remarkable jump in the quote unquote unreliability of their vehicles, which means that you ever have to take them in for a recall ever.
Recalls and whatever.
Yeah, it's like okay, sure, find a car company without a recall.
Also, don't some Subarus use Takata airbags?
I think the older ones did. Yeah,
but that's going to skew numbers.
Yeah. Yep. So it's but apparently it was actually quite funny. The assembly people in Indiana were getting all hot and bothered with the design people in Japan, and are like, "Send us a car we can build, for God's sake." Well, that's, not super encouraging.
I don't understand. What do you mean?
So they attribute the rise in recalls and stuff to overly complicated and poorly designed designs coming out of Japan, and not their lack of ability to bolt it together.
Well, so what? Just go the Tesla route. Say fuck them. That's right.
Yeah, right.
Whoever, at whatever point it becomes inconvenient for you, just tell them to fuck off.
That's the funny thing, is that they won't, though. They're like, yeah, it's like, we have to keep issuing these recalls because you're sending us terrible designs. Fix it. So, and it's not helped any by the fact that they have like a huge surge in demand, so they're training a whole bunch of new people to assemble these cars. So what's that? It's like, never buy a car assembled on a Wednesday or whatever.
Sure.
Some adage. It's worse because they're all new people. But at least we know that they take care of their recalls and do it in a timely fashion, and don't do things like GM and just not.
Yep.
So
exactly.
We'll see. But that was an interesting article I read, of course, after I purchased my newest one. It's like Subaru's having unprecedented quality issues. Oh, super. And then you read it. and then you read it, and it's like, oh, they've had to do a recall? Oh, so they're just better than GM by 2 recalls. That's fine.
I will take my chances.
Yeah, exactly. And probably none of these things that are broken will kill me. Yeah, I'll take my chances.
Yeah, all right. Well, sweet, man. I'm looking forward to getting to see that car in person whenever it is that we can actually get back together in person and do stuff.
Sure.
But
I think it'd be a pretty decent choice for all going up to Road America if we wanted to take one car.
For sure.
So maybe then.
Absolutely. Well, we'll see in a month.
Exactly.
We've got a bunch of other topics to get to, but because this episode does not have pace laps and like a segment split, what do you guys say we get our break in before we get into the rest of these topics?
Yeah, let's do that. You do that. I'll get my notes organized in the break. We'll try. I'll start, and if it's stupid or boring, you guys just tell me to shut the fuck up, and we'll talk about the Kia K5 instead.
Okay, sounds good. So we're going to get into all that and more right after this break. All right, folks, we're back, and we have a bunch of topics to cover here on this open episode of ours. But before we do, we just want to remind you how to get a hold of us if you feel so inclined. We have our very own website. It is checkenginepodcast.com. And we have an email address there. It is inbox@checkenginepodcast.com. We are also all over social media. You can find us on Facebook by searching Check Engine Podcast. Andrew, where can they find us on Twitter?
At Check Engine Pod.
And Tristan, you did a great job with the new car announcement and the Studebaker and all that stuff on Instagram. If listeners want to take a look at that, where should they go?
They want to take a look at that, and I say they want to take a look at that and see how I spoil our episodes next. Follow us at Check Engine Pod.
So be sure to like, follow, share, post, DM. Just reach out how and when you can. Folks, you can ask us questions to answer on the air. You can tell us what you like, what you don't like. You can give us topic ideas, anything you want. We look forward to hearing from you. Now, to get back to the show, Andrew, you wanted to bring us back from break here, present one of your topics for the group.
Yeah, I wish I had conspiracy music. That'd be perfect for this, or like quick cuts or something. So a few days ago, I think it was at the end of last week, like a Thursday type thing, right before the long weekend, BMW, formerly a car company, they mentioned that what they're going to start to do with their new iDrive system, it actually is new hardware and a whole new OS, basically. I'll talk a little more about
OS
that.
7.
Yeah, iDrive 7. What they're going to do is to start charging for features that normally you would purchase and then own. So whereas, before when you buy a car, you would buy the car and you would get the things that are in the car and they would be yours and you would own them. They now want to charge you for things like the adaptive suspension. But they're starting with things that are either very unpopular options or very niche. So they want to charge for the M suspension, the adaptive M suspension, which is not that popular because BMW fetishists are very weird. It's not a quote unquote real M suspension. It's an electronically modulated. So they don't like it that much. And they're also going to charge for the Iconic Sounds Sport feature, which is the noise that it pipes into the cabin when you're driving. So instead of purchasing the car and paying for those things up front with your money like you would do at any other car dealership or for any other brand of car, they want to repeatedly charge you for those things over and over and over. So there would be a monthly fee or an annual fee or theoretically there'll be a buyout.
I'm going to have a fee for my suspension, a monthly fee.
Yeah, BMW would love to charge you a monthly fee for suspension. Well,
what if I don't pay my monthly fee? Do they come pull the suspension out of my vehicle?
No, they can remotely turn it off because this is all software.
Oh, the software.
Yeah, it's the electronically controlled M suspension, and they'll just turn that feature off.
Exactly.
Here's my next follow-up question. If it's unpopular, wouldn't you want that to be given away for free so people can try it and maybe boost the demand?
Well, that's one theory. I have a secondary theory, which is this is how they're going to test the water. BMW is acting very much like a failing company. For a company that supposedly is successful, they are doing everything they can to look like they're either, the video game industry, which has some of the worst business practices anywhere, or they're acting like a failing company and they're just flailing to find any little repeatable streams of revenue instead of acting like a fucking car company. But
here's the kicker for me, and I don't want to steal your thunder necessarily, but the other thing they're acting like Tesla.
Yep.
Because the plan is to fit these vehicles with all of the necessary physical components and then paywall them.
Correct.
That's exactly what Tesla does with its higher capacity batteries.
Yeah,
all the cars have the higher capacity batteries. You just have to pay a fee to get access to them in the software.
Yeah, it's pretty despicable. But in BMW's case, it also reminded me of their little dalliance with charging for free features like CarPlay.
I was going to say, didn't we have this discussion last year?
We absolutely did. So I thought, okay, this is an opportunity to do something that kind of is rarely done in car journalism, which is to kind of test these claims that are being made by brands when they do quick 180s. So especially in the case of Tesla, when a claim is made and then Elon backs out of it 2 months later, which he does with every claim he's ever made.
Say all the time?
Allegedly or whatever. I don't know. I'll go with allegedly on that. No one really ever flips it back around and says, well, no, and here's why. So I thought that I work in tech, so I have a little bit of knowledge that can get me pointed in the right direction to finding out whether or not BMW's original claim about why they're going to charge for CarPlay holds any water at all. Because while they're not saying that, they're not saying anything about why they want to charge subscriptions other than that boilerplate that the video game industry uses, again, which doesn't work. Things like DLC, it's only cosmetic, a greater opportunity, greater customizability. None of that is true, of course, but they're using that language. But previous to that, for the CarPlay thing, specifically what BMW said is that CarPlay is hard. And they needed to charge an annual fee for CarPlay, unlike anybody else, because it's difficult.
So I can tell you, without any further investigation, no, it isn't.
Well, hold on.
And here's my one piece of proof. I'm not going to ruin your story, Andrew. I promise. Here's my one piece of proof. Subaru did it.
Well, hold on.
And they have the worst infotainment system ever.
True. But there is a but. That because I was thinking exactly along the lines that you were, Tristan, that it's actually not complicated and that this is all bullshit. However, there's one aspect of BMW CarPlay that is unusual but not uncommon. And that is that BMW uses wireless CarPlay, which of course I didn't really know much about, and I wanted to find out more about it. So I was looking for the CarPlay white paper, but because it's Apple, they do things a little differently. So I went ahead and I watched their dev conference from 2012 about CarPlay that announced wireless CarPlay, and it's essentially the Cliff's Notes for car UI or in-dash entertainment developers on what they need to do to make sure that their cars play nice with CarPlay. It sets up all the Apple standards. It tells you what you need to address. It tells you how to label things. It's kind of interesting. It is actually from the Apple developer site. And I just went ahead and watched the video. So I just want to briefly explain CarPlay over wireless is kind of a really interesting technology. So traditionally, and kind of what people will tell you it happens, is it's CarPlay over Bluetooth. However, it doesn't use Bluetooth. So any car that uses wireless CarPlay requires a Wi-Fi connection. It requires an 802.11ac specifically beamforming Wi-Fi connection in the car. So it connects initially via Bluetooth because that's a little easier to kind of get in the door. Then
it handshakes easily. Yep.
Exactly. And then it handshakes over to the Wi-Fi, which sends the credentials to the phone, disconnects the Bluetooth, and everything in the phone moves through the essentially tunneled internet from the phone to the car.
Yes, and I believe it also the phone treats it like an external display, which is the same for wired CarPlay.
Correct.
So if anybody has CarPlay and you're curious and you want to pull a cool trick, take a screenshot while your phone is plugged into CarPlay. You'll actually get a screenshot of your phone screen and the CarPlay screen. Yep.
And if you have issues with CarPlay on your phone, that is also how you report them to Apple. But that's all shit. All right. So as I was watching this developer video, I realized that the way to start to figure out how to test BMW's claim about the difficulty in development is to figure out the hardware that BMW used in their vehicles, because there's a very clear hierarchy being established here now. Apple in their dev conference tells you every single thing that your hardware has to meet. And because car companies, it's not that no car companies develop their own fully bespoke electronics for their in-dash systems. It's just there's absolutely no need to do that. There are specifically designed, temperature tested, hardened technologies that you can literally drop into your in-dash system and have them work automatically for things like CarPlay. Now, it's not that they do. You have to code the front end, but the hardware is there so that it can work. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, you're using, I think you said the term is off the shelf.
Yep.
It exists. Yeah.
So what I did is try to figure out what BMW could possibly be using in their in-dash entertainment at this time. So this was in 2019. That would make them say to everyone that we need to charge for CarPlay because it's hard, when every single thing in their chain is an off-the-shelf component with the exception of the UI, their bespoke interface. So this was the hardest part of this, because there's no way on the surface to tell what chipsets BMW might use in order to make this wireless CarPlay work. So, there's hundreds of 802.11ac chips, and there's only a few that fit their use case. But my first attempt was to try to go in the front door, look up what a BMW in-dash system is, and the hardware that's in it. But I tried Reddit. I even DM'd Buzzy, and I'm like, listen, I don't know what I'm doing here, but I think I'm on the right path, just trying to figure out what it is. And he kind of said, yeah, I don't know anything about it, but, try Reddit, see if anyone can tell you or find you a parts diagram. So longer story short, I discovered that BMW's in-dash systems are named NBT, or next big thing, Evo. And at the time of this announcement, they were in the ID5 or ID6 generation. This new one that just came out that will do the 7.0 version is called the MGU. It's a total rewrite. But at the time that BMW made this CarPlay announcement, they were in the NBT 5 and 6 generation. That is good to know, because now, while I can't necessarily get spec sheets, that means that I can start to figure out what chips would be used in it. So I did that. I found that there are only three or four, depending on whether one is still in manufacture, specific automotive wireless SoCs, or systems on a chip, that do Bluetooth and 802.11ac or P or AX. And those are the requirements. So it can only be one of three possible chips. One's by ON, one's by Marvel, and the other one's by Qualcomm. So what that
I could have put $5 on Qualcomm being one.
Of course. So this is important because now I know that the field of possible hardware for running wireless CarPlay is very, very small. It's only those three, which means that everyone in the automotive world who has wireless CarPlay in their cars almost certainly uses one of those three. And it's probably the Qualcomm one, because that is specifically designed for automotive applications. It's a little bit more future-proof and backwards compatible. And Bluetooth and Qualcomm is a very, very popular company. They make a ton of shit, and lots of manufacturers probably already have deals with them in place for something else. Simply because they do so much different stuff in-house, they can probably, help them out with other aspects of their in-dash entertainment. So, it wouldn't just be buying the wireless SoC and then tacking it on something else, because they make so much other stuff, they can kind of produce more of the system. That's a pure guess, but again, it's only one of three chips. So, with that knowledge in hand, what I did is compare BMW's release practices for a car from, I just went back to 2016. I said, okay, that's the newest, that's when we started to see mainstream CarPlay. So from 2016 to the end of 2019, surely if BMW had such a problem developing for wireless CarPlay, which they already had in their cars in that 2016 generation, this means that they must have vastly more updates than anyone else, right? Because they were working harder because CarPlay is so complicated. But they don't.
Let's say, but no.
So while this isn't by no means exhaustive, what I did is pull VINs from AutoTrader and run them through various manufacturers' software update web pages. And for most manufacturers, that's actually not enough. You have to register the car in some way or register as a user. It's actually absurd how difficult car manufacturers have made it to update their fucking software. But what it turns out to be is that between 2016, which would be 2017 model year cars, right? Because, that whole thing. Most manufacturers had between 1 or 2 updates from then until now. And that encompasses, Tristan, is it 3 full release versions of iOS?
I believe so, yes.
But the one thing I didn't, so basically, BMW did not do any more developing than anyone else. They didn't try harder, and they didn't do more for anyone. But they did do something that is really, really weird. So because BMW basically used generations for their in-dash entertainment, that NBT ID thing. So that, the NBT is the overall name. The ID is the generation. All of their cars made, for example, in, I think it's 2016 through 2018, use the NBT 6. Or maybe it was the 5, either way. That means that all of those vehicles made in that time have the exact same components in their in-dash entertainment. However, instead of making everything the exact same across all those models, which is what other brands do, or they'll keep it, per name. So for example, at Hyundai, all the Elantras are exactly the same. All the Velostras are exactly the same. All the Tucsons are exactly the same. They may be different from each other, but they're all the same. However, BMW unites all of their models by generation. So what that means is that when BMW released their one update, it's actually 8 different kinds of updates for tiny little changes in their generation of NBT, all rolled up into one update, which to me seems like a really weird and somewhat bad practice. Essentially, you're downloading a reasonably large bin file. The bin file for this update is 164 megabytes. For a patch that's probably an eighth of that. And it was kind of mysterious to me because looking at the way Honda, Hyundai, Chevy do it, they base it, I mean, as far as I can tell, on model names. So every model family uses the exact same components. That seems to be a lot smarter to me. That seems like a more efficient use of dev time. While you're breaking it up a little more individually before you release each update, rolling all these updates into one big massive probability does not seem like the way to do it. They don't do that with Android updates necessarily.
No, I would say that's not standard practice.
So anyways, while this is absolutely not conclusive, what I can say is that when BMW gets to talking about in public what they do with their in-dash entertainment system, they leave a lot out. And so when they're transitioning to this new iteration of pay services, it will absolutely not stop with the adaptive M suspension and the stupid sounds. No one cares about those things. No one's going to buy those things. I guarantee you the next iteration of this exact same system, iDrive 7, 7.5, iDrive 8, it's going to be something else. It's going to be, they've already announced possibly heated seats and adaptive cruise control. Possibly. All right, fine. What's next? If it's an electric car, it's going to be the range. We know that for sure. It's going to be, they're going to circle their asses right back around to CarPlay and Android Auto. I mean, the creep here is going to be shockingly fast and encompass so much.
So I think it's barely going to qualify as creep.
Yeah.
How many other car companies are going to start doing the same thing, though?
Not one that I will ever buy from.
Well, I'm just saying across the board, the industry tends to be a copycat industry. If someone finds something that works, everyone else rushes to do the same thing. So
yeah, it's dependent on it working, though.
Right.
So far, there's been nothing but backlash.
Right.
True.
But all I'm saying is, like, it might be a slippery slope fallacy, but how long before essentially going to a dealership gets you a shell with a seatbelt, and then they nickel and dime you for everything else you want in your car? Which is what they do anyway. It's like but then I own the thing. Not to this extent.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's the renewable cost that aggravates me so much. And I guess the whole reason that I did this is to try to answer for myself. Again, I can't speak for anyone else as to whether or not I can reasonably believe anything that BMW says about what they do with their in-dash system. Based on what I found, I can't. Because yes, they did make the choice to do wireless CarPlay in their cars instead of starting with the wired and then moving to wireless. They bought an SoC, and they are building their own updates to be as difficult for their engineers as possible, at least in my view. Again, not an expert, not a UI designer, but they're doing things differently than everyone else, and they're saying things that no one else is saying. So clearly, something that they're doing is causing what they're saying. At least that's my opinion. And I mean, while this was probably too far to go to answer the question, can they be trusted? They definitely couldn't be trusted in anything said about CarPlay. And this seems similar to me. Again, only to me. But this seems almost like the exact same thing. They want to charge you more for them to do the same or less than everyone else.
Yeah, but you get a mug and a vest.
That's true. I don't know. It's just the flip side about this. The one thing that Autoblog pointed out. I think it was Autoblog. I don't remember exactly. This could also be targeted specifically to lease customers.
Yeah, where you guess they don't want to necessarily pay for it in your lease or own it forever. You only do it for 3 years, and then the people who buy it certified used can pay for it. I don't know.
Right.
It's weird.
Right. I mean, I don't know. We'll see what happens. One thing is for sure, though. While we talked about creep and we talked about all that stuff, if BMW tried this already with CarPlay, they will for what I think is an absolute certainty with iDrive 7, they'll probably put out 8 for free. They're going to make you pay for 9.
Yeah, probably.
And then what? Then we're back to their original claim about CarPlay being hard to develop for, which again, it probably is a little tricky, but it's not as hard as they're making it seem, at least in my opinion. That's all I got. That was the trip down Crazy Town.
Well, it's interesting that you went on the trip you did, because when I got the Outback, I was actually looking at it seemed very, very different. It seemed way better and more responsive because they're basically running an actual computer in the head unit.
Right.
And they weren't before. They were running a 5-year-old smartphone in the head unit before. They're actually running for the Ascent, and not the Ascent, the Outback and the Legacy, the 2020s. They're actually using automotive grade Linux.
That's interesting.
Like, it's a full Linux distro that you could run on a computer if you wanted to. It's optimized for automotive use, but it would run on just regular hardware.
I'm assuming most of the like interface stuff is probably Java, though. At least the way Apple was talking about it, it seemed that most of the addressable instructions were created for Java, or at least a super plain text version of Linux.
Yes, definitely. And a lot of the previously, like on the WRX, if you burrowed into the head unit, it was actually running a Android version. Yeah,
I'm sure it's likely. Well, that was one thing that was floated to me. Find a BMW and try to access the dev mode on the head unit, and I was like, I would like to, but
anybody have one I can borrow?
Exactly. Can
we borrow a fleet vehicle, Tristan?
I don't think we have anything. I don't think we have anything that new.
Anyways, right. I did manage to find what I needed. So thanks to the guy on Reddit who was like, I have manuals. I have the factory manuals, and they don't say anything about the back end of the head unit. So again, almost everything I said is guesswork. Everything I said is absolutely opinion. But from what I see, I don't trust anything they're saying, and I haven't since they announced the CarPlay thing. And I think, I've proven to myself that that's warranted.
Well, there you go.
I think so.
Yeah, absolutely. Whew. Well, that's some investigative journalism, dude.
I don't know about all that. I just tried to put some pieces together. I did.
Well, it was funny. I told him when he hinted that he had something that what did you say? I went beautiful mind on it.
Mm-hmm.
I just imagined It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia meme where he's like standing in front of the bulletin board with a bunch of
the Charlie Day
red
meme
art on it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I felt. Because at one point, I thought I'd hit a complete dead end because I couldn't find a diagram of what's on the back end. I couldn't find any information on the hardware. And the only thing I had was the NBT name, which doesn't really do anything because it just stands for next big thing. But then I found a website that is only and exclusively a listing of every wireless standard chip made in the world. And I found that right before I went to bed one night, and I was like, oh shit, now I got to search through this. I'm like in this database, like searching by wireless standard and searching by, but as soon as I found one of those chips, I realized there's a whole subset of chips specifically made for the automotive industry because they have to be. When you put something in a car, it has to be temperature tested.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah, so that was true. A little breakthrough. Anyways, that enough of my craziness.
Yeah, not just temperature tested, like cold soaked. Where it's going to be off for days, and it's gonna get really, really cold.
That's true. They do have to have. I mean, even in the event of essentially self-healing BIOS, because if you turn that shit off, it's off.
Yeah, that's at least after a while. It's funny. I noticed in my WRX that the head unit actually had cooling fans. If you turned it off and it was hot enough, it would actually run fans in the dash. You could hear it.
Oh, that's funny.
I was like, oh, weird. So I haven't had that on my new one yet, but they may be further in the dash. It's a substantially larger head unit. So, but yeah, it was like, there was actually like running fans and stuff after it shut down. I was like, I hope that doesn't run forever. I was like, kill my battery.
Yeah. Well, all right, Nick, what do you got?
Well, what do we want to tackle first? You wanted to talk about Ferrari and another lawsuit?
Yes.
Always,
yeah.
So this one is interesting because they actually lost this suit. Ferrari loses legal battle to trademark the shape of the 250 GTO.
Huh.
So, for those who aren't aware, the 250 GTO is like Ferrari's rarest car. Only 39 units were built between 1962 and 1964. It was one of their like GT endurance racers from the mid 60s. It is now considered like a holy grail, if you will, of collector cars.
True.
It is the most expensive classic car in the world.
Twice over.
So, interesting fun fact. The last one that was purchased for the record-setting price of $70 million US.
I think we talked about that.
yeah, we did.
At the time, but we didn't know at that time. I wasn't aware of who bought it. Do you guys know who the owner is?
Sultan of Brunei.
No.
Some guy.
The founder and CEO of WeatherTech, David McNeil.
What?
Yep. He
That's
is
crazy.
He is a quote noted Ferrari collector. So
that explains
the WeatherTech Ferrari and IMSA that his son drives.
Yeah, I was going to say
a lot.
So Cooper McNeil's dad owns the most expensive road car in the world.
Good for him.
Paid $70 million for a car. Anyway, so there is a bespoke boutique sports car design firm in Modena, the same city as Ferrari is based, that took Ferrari to court because I'm guessing they want to build like some sort of kit car or something that models the 250 GTO. It doesn't actually say what they're intending to do with this ruling in the article that I'm reading.
Yep.
But they basically went to court and said and presented like the use it or lose it argument. Normally for trademarks to stand, you need to show significant use within a certain amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
So Ferrari last refiled for a trademark on the 250 GTO in 2007, 13 years ago. And this, I think it's Eris Design, took them to court and said, yeah, but they haven't made one since 1964. And the court said, you know what? You're right. They have no right to a trademark here because they haven't used it. And just wipe that off the record books. So now anybody, you could get in the US, you get Cobra kit cars or whatever it is. Someone can now get a mold and make a 250 GTO replica or kit car. Eris Design or anybody else. So suck it, Ferrari.
I just want to point out, and I've said this before, I don't know the difference between this and an E-Type. They look the same to me. 99% of these fancy cars, especially from Ferrari, they're just the same to me. They're not special. They're not unique. I get that this one's expensive, but, I've always wanted to do an investigation into who the hell at Haggerty is driving up the prices of these things. It's not Streets. Streets isn't telling you to buy a fucking 250 GTO for $70 million. Dale, the previous owner, is telling you it's worth $70 million. Well, okay. But this is actually really interesting because it brings up so much that could possibly be done. Assuming this is an EU ruling, right?
Yes, EU ruling.
So, difference here, possibly negligible, but there is a subculture, not only of kit cars, but of, I'm thinking of all of those model kits and flags and merch that uses car shapes. And I've always wondered if that's...
Yeah, how many logos just use like the outline
exactly
of a car with like the company name underneath it or something like that.
And I've never really wondered if you can copyright the shape of a car. The design, yes, and that's kind of the issue with. I mean, how many brands have tried to take a Chinese company to court over stealing the design, or Mahindra? Mahindra just got slapped down in the U.S. They can't sell Mahindras in the U.S. anymore because the Roxor was determined to be too similar to the Jeep.
Yes,
and it literally is the old Jeep.
Well, it is because I know it's weird because they received licensing to manufacture the old Jeeps. I don't know how it's like, here, have this thing. Here, have this thing. We don't want it anymore. Oh, you're going to sell it here? No, you can't have it anymore. It's
no. What? That's its own weird thing. But so there is and again, I'm not a lawyer.
A change in legal counsel at FCA. That's what happened. Someone else got in and is like, wait, you're doing what?
Quite possibly. But so clearly at some point in the production, like from drawing the shape of a GTO, a 250 GTO, say, which is just like a little thing, and there's like a hump for the cabin, and there's like a little blah at the end for the tail that goes blah.
And that paints a pretty picture for our listeners. Well done.
Yeah, well, I mean, sorry, can everyone picture an E-Type? That's a 250 GTO. There you go.
An E-Type with a roof.
Yeah, with a little blah. And but so sometime at some point between that drawing or that shape and the physical car, there is clearly something that is in fact a trademark, something that can be, and it probably is the physical object itself, right? But I don't know. This is kind of interesting to me. I don't know where that actually takes place. It's sort of the like those.
Where does the intellectual property end?
Yeah, those Cobra kits.
Is it like the design drawings, like the blueprints that are housed in the files somewhere deep in the Ferrari hallway? Like they still have that is somewhere archived. Like
it's interesting. And also, those Cobra kits, all those kits get by at least I thought I read this somewhere, like making differences on the original. So they're slightly smaller, they're narrower, they're they're a different car, right? They happen to have similarities. Who would have thought?
The wheelbase is an inch shorter or something like that.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought that they depended on. So I don't know. This is interesting.
Yeah, I don't know where it goes from here. Like the ruling just came down very, very recently. The news articles from today. So I guess we'll see if we start seeing a bunch of faux GTOs rolling around.
I wouldn't even be able to tell.
That is true. I saw a gunmetal gray 488 on the 4th of July rolling around Cedarburg. That was pretty cool. Speaking of Ferrari, side note.
Nice. I love that car.
But it was rolling like right down Main Street, and like you see it like rolling down like the main drags in towns like that. And I guess that's where a lot of people are that can gawk at it. But the thing is barely out of first gear. It's maybe in second gear doing like 22 miles an hour. And it's just like, why are you not on the interstate? Like, what are you doing? Because like it went up and back down the street a few times. Like the guy was trying to make people look.
Who in the crepe cafe is going to see me if I'm doing this on the interstate?
So that was man, that was such a cool car. And then I'm like, it's just so out of place here. Like, what is it doing at 20 miles an hour rolling through a little town like this? Like, at least get out on the 2-lane highways, get out in the back roads where you can open it up, if not the interstate,
Maybe he wanted crepes, man.
It was closed.
Well, yeah, but he didn't know that.
Maybe that's why he went down and back up again.
Yeah.
He went down looking for crepes, was like, crap, they're closed, and went back the other way.
Ferraris and Crepes, episode title.
Ugh. I don't want either of those.
What's wrong with crepes?
They're just like a thin pancake.
I'm aware of what a crepe is. I'm telling you, I don't want one.
Do you not like pancakes?
Talladega Nights reference. That's all.
Anyway, on to the next topic. Whose turn is it?
Oh, I thought you had something else.
I have another one. If you guys want to go into it, I was just trying to go round robin here. So,
Tristan and I went on for like 30 minutes each because we're both.
Yeah, let's say I rambled a bit.
All right. Well, you guys just want to get this out of the way and talk about the Donald Trump versus Bubba Wallace thing.
Yeah. Yes, I do actually.
Okay. So I have a lot of talking points on this, so this might be my turn to ramble a bit, so bear with me. So we'll rewind a few weeks. NASCAR was in Talladega. The garage pull rope in Bubba Wallace's garage stall was fashioned to look like a noose. So that was a big story. Immediately got FBI on it, blah, blah, blah. FBI came out and said, after another couple of days, you know what, this was not a hate crime thing. And there was photo evidence that came out to show that same noose garage pull was there in October 2019 when Ryan Blaney's car was in that stall. And garage stalls are assigned at random. So the conclusion, and rightly so, is if it's random assigned garage stalls, this thing was there before NASCAR loaded in this spring. There's no way of saying that this is a hate crime towards Bubba Wallace. Okay. Hey, you know what? That's actually a good thing here. Instead of it reaching to jump down people's throat, like, hey, that's good news.
Yeah,
for people,
happy news.
For people attacking now Bubba Wallace, saying that this is a Jussie Smollett thing and all this kind of stuff, and this is a hoax. First, the definition of a hoax includes malicious intent. It is something that's false, but it's with malicious intent. The picture evidence was there. It's not a hoax. It was a real thing hanging there. And it was determined that that's not a hoax. It was just more of like a misunderstanding. It wasn't intentional.
More to the point, Bubba Wallace didn't see this. He didn't report it.
Exactly. You're getting ahead of me. I'm taking it in steps, but yes, you're absolutely correct. So number one, this wasn't a hoax. So stop calling it one. Number two, Andrew, Tristan, you guys have been around a bunch of garages in your day. You've probably seen a garage rope, whether it be the nylon one on your garage door opener at your home or otherwise in a body shop. Y'all ever seen one that's fashioned to look like that before?
No, because that's a stupid knot to use.
Exactly.
No, because it's only good for one thing.
Hanging people.
Yeah.
Well, the whole point, basically, but the whole point of the noose knot is so that when you grab onto the loop, it gets tighter.
Right.
And that's the opposite of what you want if that's on a garage door.
Exactly. So, to that point, NASCAR, before the person who reported this even reported it to NASCAR, they walked all through the garage area at Talladega to make sure that, hey, I'm not just crazy here. That it's this, what are all the other pull ropes like? Not one of them had a knot. They were just a straight rope, which most garage pulls are.
Mm-hmm.
So then
maybe a nice T-handle.
So then NASCAR checked all 1,684 garage stalls that they use at the 29 tracks that they visit. Do you know how many had knots, period? You guys want to take a guess?
6.
2.
11.
Hey, closest without going over.
Pretty close.
Yeah. Right where Tristan wins. Good job, Tristan. So out of 1,684 garages, there were 1,673 that were just regular old ropes.
Mm-hmm.
11 of them had knots. One of them looked like a noose. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So Was it meant for Bubba? Probably not. I'm pretty sure the garages at Talladega were just refurbished a couple years ago. So maybe it was one of the contractors just trying to be, an idiot and just throwing it in there to see who would notice. I don't know. But Andrew, to your point, Bubba never saw it.
Mm-hmm.
Because of social distancing, the drivers aren't allowed in the garage area. He only found out when NASCAR called him and told him about it. So to attack him and say he's seeking attention, it wasn't him. It was somebody else, because NASCAR practices social distancing to go racing, which I'm sure the people who are attacking him for a hoax don't understand, because America, they don't have to social distance, right?
Right.
So don't blame Bubba for any of it. He was just responding to what he was told. And people are also they're so quick to fake news. They're missing a bigger picture here. The way the NASCAR community rallied around Wallace the next day is an example, or maybe a small microcosm, of what society overall big picture is. If for every one bigoted, homophobic, racist idiot out there, there are hundreds upon thousands of people who care and who want to make a difference and who want to be part of the solution, not the problem.
Well, more to the point, that's instructive. That's illustrative, right? What we see here is, first of all, a team member of a minority, a prominent person who happens to be a minority, who acted completely rightfully and correctly when he saw what appeared to be a threat to that person. Everything that team member did is absolutely what every single person should do. Ignoring that is white privilege.
Right. 100%. Yes. And that brings me to this morning at 6:30 a.m., the fat Cheeto in DC comes out and says, isn't it about time that Bubba Wallace apologizes to drivers and teams in NASCAR for the hoax? Just completely out of the blue, 2 or 3 weeks after this has been resolved, when he's got a re-election campaign to worry about, he's got an economy in the toilet, or starting to recover, but big hit over these past for now because of a global pandemic. He's got
that has been entirely failed to address.
He's got troops that have been overseas in Afghanistan. He didn't send them there, but they've been there for 18, 19 years. One of my best friends in high school is in a military tent village 2 hours from the closest camp in the middle of the Arabian desert, watching for missiles that might be coming at us. All this other stuff to worry about, and he just decides he's going to take a swipe at Bubba Wallace this morning. For what?
For literally, it had nothing to do, well, other than Bubba Wallace being again completely rightfully being perceived as a target of an actual hate crime. Everything about that is correct. It is correct to make that assumption. It is correct to act on it. It is correct to report it.
And I'll even go as far as to say it's correct to investigate it, report it, and go, you know what? Probably wasn't.
Absolutely.
But we did look at it and made sure.
And again, reiterate, that's good news that it wasn't.
Yes, exactly.
That's also a positive thing. People are spinning that as a negative and turning it. So he makes this statement, hey, the hoax, and then he's like, that and banning of the Confederate flags means lowest ratings ever for NASCAR. Immediately refuted by a Fox Sports executive who said, our ratings are up 8% since the COVID pandemic.
Nope.
So that's wrong. And then I also want to applaud 2 other tweets here that came out in response. One is from Tyler Reddick. He is a rookie in the Cup Series this year. He won the last 2 Xfinity Series championships. Supremely talented young driver. Keep an eye for that name. We're going to be mentioning him in this podcast down the road, I promise you, for racing stuff, not this. But At Real Donald Trump, we don't need an apology. We did what was right, and we will do just fine without your support. Complete with a gif of Denzel Washington slamming a door in someone's face. And then the other one I want to highlight, which I think sums this up beautifully than what I ever could, and we kind of touched on all of it already, is from Bob Wallace, who is a award-winning journalist who's been covering NASCAR since the mid-90s or early 90s, and he works for Fox Sports. His tweet: "There is nothing to apologize for when A, you're taking a perceived threat seriously, B, people are showing support for one another, C, making policy changes to be more inclusive and more welcoming, and D, doing what you feel is right regardless of any perceived business consequences."
Yes.
Amen. Bob Wallace.
He nailed it. There's
absolutely nothing for anybody to apologize for here. The least of which is Bubba Wallace, who was just thought to be a target. He wasn't the one reaching out. He wasn't the one blowing the whistle.
And you know what?
When are people going to get through their skulls?
Well, it's so important that he didn't have to. It's so important that it didn't get to that point, especially now, especially with NASCAR's pivot towards modernity. It's so important that Bubba Wallace didn't have to get there and see it. His teammates understand what it means to work on a team with a black athlete in an all-white sport. They get that, and that's rare.
They do.
Honestly, like I think we've said this when we heard about it the first time. This makes me want to watch NASCAR.
Same. I don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to hold out, because although I've been skeptical, they've done everything right since they started this.
Basically, the only thing standing in my way at this point is the racing going to be good? And if it is, then I'll probably start watching NASCAR.
I know. What a shift. What a change.
It's just, it boggles me at how people are missing the bigger picture on this. They're so quick. It's just frustrating. You know, I was reading this stuff and I felt bad for Claire. I was practically yelling at her during our little lunch break today from work. I was so hot over this. People are so quick nowadays just to point and fake news and this person's no one actually takes a step back and look at it from, take that, to use a quote that's so popular in my the company I work for, the 30,000 foot view. Like the bigger picture. When I posted I posted Bubba's selfie that he took from the front of the grid that day after they pushed his car up in support. And I said I posted a lot of what I said here, an abridged version of it. And there was somebody who replied with an angry face and said it was a garage pull. And I didn't want to get into it on social media with this lady, but it's like you're missing the fucking point.
And
you're just it was a garage pull that was shaped in a noose.
Yeah, exactly. Finish your sentence.
Yeah. It was a garage pull in the shape of a noose in the garage of a black man.
I mean,
now I understand that was random, but it was definitely worth looking at.
At that point in time, they didn't know.
It's just that is also an instructive thing, because that's exactly, it was a garage pull. Yeah, you're exactly right. But finish what you're saying and then think of the context. That's one of the things that's become so clear in the middle of, this, we've talked about it before, this actionable race war in the streets. You see how much has to happen for the black community to get the littlest bit of support from the white community. And that is exactly what this is. Yes. What was the end result of that not being a noose? An amazing show of support, an uplifting moment for everyone in the country. And that's fucking it. There was no downside.
Yeah, nobody got fired. There were no consequences for anybody. Like nothing happened except good stuff.
Like a dude, whoever did that 6, 7, 8 months ago, played a prank, got away with it. We're probably never going to know who actually fashioned it that way. Okay. Like, that's good news. Not that part of it, but the fact that no consequences are like no driver or team member got fired. There's no NASCAR official scandal, nothing.
Yeah. Nothing bad happened. And people still say that it was a bad, I mean, fucking Jussie Smollett really fucked the game up for everyone, but not the game, but he really fucked everything up in the world at a critical moment, because this shouldn't be a discussion. It wasn't, not only was it not a fraud, it actually happened. It makes it so impossible for people who think a certain way to see that even in this situation where we just talked about everything went the best way it possibly could have with the best end result, that's somehow negative. And the only reason I can see, again, purely my opinion, the only reason I can see for that is that the person who, quote unquote, benefited the most, and again, questionable benefit because he thought his life was in danger, was a black man. That's the only reason I can see that anyone would have a problem with this, because nothing else happened. Just my opinion.
I don't think that's just your opinion. I think that's what's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's totally nuts.
Yeah, I just needed to vent a little bit there. Like it's just getting so annoying and frustrating, and I've been so like I've never necessarily been, and it's, don't jump down my throat, listeners, or social media, like it has nothing to do with the color of your skin. I've never been like a Bubba Wallace fan. I really haven't. Like, he was there. He's running Richard Petty's car, iconic number. Nothing against him, but I've been so proud of the way he's been carrying himself over the past few months. Mm-hmm. Because he knew this was going to happen. He absolutely knew, not that this specific incident at Talladega, but he knew he was going to be under a microscope because of what's going on across the country. And like you said, Andrew, he's the only black man in an all-white sport. Mm-hmm. And he has handled it, I think, as good as you can expect someone in his position to do so. So more than anything, I'm becoming more of a fan because I'm proud of him. I'm just proud of the way he is carrying himself right now.
Yeah, you got to admire that, and it also has to be said.
Remember, too, he's only 26. Like, it's not like he's a seasoned vet. He's got a lot of life ahead of him. I'm sure he's lived a lot of life already in his position, and he's already,
racing life. You mean
racing life, or even the race relation life, like the part that we don't understand, the being a black person in America. Obviously, he has gone through things that we don't, but he still has a lot of life in front of him. It's not like he's some 70-year-old man, like with a bunch of wisdom behind him. You know what I mean? Like the front porch guy. Yeah. He's very young to be shouldering a lot of this stuff. Yeah. And he's doing a great job.
I also think that it's worth mentioning that NASCAR has done a good job not giving in to an opportunity for tokenism, because I mean, obviously it's such a hard topic to talk about, especially, as someone who is white, but there's a moment when support from an organization, there's a moment when support in a hiring capacity or, anything like that flips from something genuine into something that's disingenuous and done for profit. While NASCAR, yes, publicized that moment and featured it across all their social media pages and continue to feature it going forward, it hasn't become something that they're abusing for profit, in my view.
Right. It goes from being genuine to opportunistic and patronizing.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And they haven't done that. So, maybe I have to start watching. I think I might have to.
Well, welcome to the party, man. And again, just kudos to Bob Pockrass's response. I think he killed it. I think Tyler Reddick too, in his own way. His tweet actually has since been deleted. I'm sure his team's PR people kind of reached out and said, "Hey, you just may want to lay low on this one."
Yeah,
because his tweet has been deleted, but people have screen grabbed it and it's all over the place anyway. It's still going to live on. So, but I applaud him too, like just taking it upon himself to stand up and say, "Look." Essentially, without using any curse words, "Fuck you, dude," to the president.
And that's a tough thing. That's.
So, I mean, kudos to him as well. I got really nothing else to say. I think we covered it at least on this topic. But I appreciate you guys letting me just vent a little bit because it's been pent up for a while.
No, it's good. That's what we're here for. I mean, that's what I did too, but just, about BMW, fewer implications.
Yeah, I vented about Subaru dealers and their trailer installs. So it's all same thing, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, man, look at the time. I didn't realize how long we've been going.
So if we want to stick with the racing thing real quick, just Red Bull's protest of Mercedes' DAS system in the steering wheel got denied.
We do need to talk about this. This is actually time sensitive in some way.
Yes. So basically, we talked about it very early on in the year when Formula One was doing their preseason testing, how Mercedes had debuted a new system where essentially the driver can push or pull the steering column towards him or away from him to adjust the camber on the car. So the front tires can have less grip on the straightaways, or less contact patch for less resistance on the straightaways, and then more contact patch in the corner for grip. They can use it on their reconnaissance laps. They can dial in more camber to get the tires up to temperature more properly for the start of the race so they can get good launches. There's a lot of benefits to it. One of those loophole things, there's there's no rule that says you can't. So now people are all up in arms. Ferrari was first way back in February or March, and F1 said, "We don't have a rule against it, sorry." And now Red Bull brought it back up again, and same response.
Well, this, I can't remember. Did Ferrari actually officially file a complaint initially?
I don't know if they initially, or did they say something like, "Well, we could, but we didn't," and
Yeah, because they know there wasn't a rule. I mean, if there's anything Ferrari knows, it's the rule book.
You're right, actually. Yeah. Yeah. So, but the reason why the stewards denied the Red Bull Racing protest is because the DAS, they said, is part of the steering and not part of the suspension.
Yes, that's right. Because it's the rule is against active suspension modifications, but the rule doesn't say anything about the steering. So because of the fact that it's controlled through the steering wheel, it is a steering modification, not a suspension modification.
I mean,
a lot of smart people in Mercedes factory. I just got to say that.
That is just simultaneously the cleverest and most fucking microwaved galaxy brain shit I've ever heard in my whole life.
And it's one of the most Mercedes things too. We must follow the rules. No cheating, please. We're Germans. But also, look what I did. I made an engineering thing.
I did an engineering.
I did an engineering, and I'm not breaking any rules because there's no rule written.
So how insane do your bylaws have to be for this to be the situation you find yourself in, where the suspension is being modulated, but the mechanism of control is what determines the protest?
I mean,
is that weird?
I haven't seen a rule book from an official, a big time racing series like a NASCAR, IndyCar, F1, IMSA. I mean, the rule book for karting is about 7 or 8 pages. It's not that long. I've heard the rule book for some SCCA club racing is like 2 pages. So big time engineers could come down. There's actually a really great podcast about level 5. Remember the old team from Wisconsin with the guy, Scott Tucker's team, and he went to jail for
the payday loan. Was that payday loans?
Payday loan guy. Yeah.
Yes, payday loans from the Native American reservation or something.
Yeah. Something horrible.
He also had I think it's the Spec Ford SCCA racer, which most of those guys apparently, from this story that was actually a Dinner with Racers podcast, they dove into this with one of the engineers who worked on the project. Those spec racers, on average, it's like a guy, his wife, and maybe his buddy or his brother that go to the racetrack. And like the really, really top dog expensive guys running nationals maybe spend like $30,000. Mm-hmm. Scott Tucker spent $6 million in 1 year on a spec racer.
Oh God!
because he saw that the rule book was only 2 pages long, so he gave it to his IMSA engineers and said, "What can you do with this?"
Oh my God! $6 million of other people's money, by the way.
Well, his money that he essentially stole from people, yes. But they had the thing hooked up to 44 CFD computers at once at one point for computer modulation.
Good Lord.
Like the engineers, like he said, that, like the story was like he came to the engineers and were like, "I want you to see what you can do with this." And they're like, "We're running IMSA in Le Mans. Why would we spend time on a spec racer Ford?" He said, "Here's the rule book." And the engineers are like, "Wait, it's only 2 pages?" And they're like, "Yep." And they're like, "Well, what's the budget?" He goes, "No budget. Do what you have to do." It's just like, okay, here we go. All bets are off.
Jeez. I mean, there is a point of diminishing returns with rule books where you've become so over effusive in trying to enforce the rules that you actually create loopholes. And I feel like that may be the situation that F1 has found themselves in, because literally, according to what the stewards say, and again, this could be a moving goalpost as well, but the reason why the appeal was rejected is because of how it functions, not what it does.
Right.
How it does it, not what it does.
Well, yeah. I think, yes, loopholes are becoming more and more prevalent. I mean, if you look back to when Vettel was at Red Bull and had his run of championships, Adrian Newey had designed the aerodynamics of that car where like the exhaust was blowing over wing end plates.
Yeah.
Just the way the car was packaged. So it was creating not only the wind that the car was traveling over, but the actual exhaust was creating more downforce by the way it was traveling over the body panels, and because of a loophole in the rules that had to be changed. And since then, Red Bull hasn't won anything.
Listen, loopholes win championships. That much is definitely self-evident.
Yeah. It's nuts. I've got one other piece on motorsports, and we can jump to something else. IndyCar also raced this weekend. The man, the myth, the machine is now 2 for 2.
Hell yeah.
He wins again. And I was actually in a discussion with my dad. Like, he started 7th. He basically dominated the second half of the race, but he made one of his pit stops right before a yellow flag. So he was out and done with his pit work. So when everybody else in front of him came into pit under caution, he inherited the lead. Mm-hmm. So, and he admitted that in his interview afterwards when he won. He's like, "Yeah, we got really lucky with that yellow flag." And my dad was like, he always tries to push my buttons for whatever reason on Scott Dixon. So he's like, "Yeah, but if it was just that yellow flag that put him up front, like he only made like 2 passes." I'm like, "Yeah, Dad, but that yellow put him up front on lap 38 of 80. And they took the green with cars stacked up behind him, and he won by 18 seconds.
Oh shit!
So
it's not like he wasn't putting distance out there the whole time.
It's not like he lucked into his position, but no one caught him either. So, and there was another pit stop after that. So, I mean,
Sometimes it's better to be lucky and good at the same time.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's really what it comes down to.
So he's 2 for 2 in IndyCar, and let's also not forget, because it was such a long time ago, he was a part of the overall winning driver team at the Rolex 24 also this year.
Yes.
That's true. I remember that.
Hell of a tear.
For Wayne Taylor Racing in the Cadillac prototype. So he's having a really good year. He's raced 4 times and won 3 of them. So...
Oh, speaking of wins, before we get out of here, Nick, C8 won its first race. He back in yet?
No.
No.
No, they actually finished 1-2. And also, as long as we're on that point with the IMSA, congrats to, I mentioned this to you guys in the WhatsApp, our friend Steve Welk from Styled Aesthetic is a driver coach and manager for a man named Aaron Tielitz from Wisconsin. Went up through the IndyCar ladder. He got to test IndyCar, never worked out. He switched over to sports car racing and was just strictly an endurance driver the last couple of years. Over this COVID break, there was a shakeup in the driver lineup at AIM Vassar Sullivan, the Lexus GT3 cars, and he got pulled in to run full season, or for the remainder of this year. He's running every race. And he takes the opportunity and goes out and wins along with his co-driver in his first time out. So congrats to Aaron Tielitz and Steve. That's awesome.
Hell yeah, that's awesome.
But Andrew, back to the CA. Did you see that they put out a tease for 2021 already?
No.
They put out a tease for 2021, and really the only significant change I can see is that it's from the teaser video. It looks like it's going to offer, like, as a standard package, like the dual racing stripes down the, like over the front and back over the top of the car, which, okay, cool. Mustang does it, whatever. But one of the combinations that they teased was Gulf Racing Blue with orange stripes.
Oh, I mean, I just feel like that has its place. And I don't think there was ever was there ever a racing Corvette that had that livery? That was just a Ford GT thing.
It was a Ford and a Porsche thing. Porsche had it too.
I feel a way about that now. Anyways, that's a topic for another time. We've been fucking rambling on for 1,000,000 hours at this point.
Yeah, it's been a minute. Does anybody else have anything else to go over? Like any car related news outside of the racetrack?
Nothing that needs to be talked about now. I'll save some stuff.
All right. Cool. Well then, yeah, we have been It's almost 2 hours. Let's get people out.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We've been going.
All right. You guys ready to get it? We're ready to get out of here then. Let's go. So thanks for sticking with us, everybody. We appreciate you listening. As we mentioned before, we do not want you just to listen. We want this to be a dialogue. We want to hear from you. We want to interact with you. So we mentioned how to find us online and the socials. In addition to that, be sure to leave us a review, preferably a good one. You can slide your cursor over to that 5th star and just depress the left click button and you'll be good to go. You can also hit the subscribe button. That's free. You'll get notified of any new content we put out. And it looks like we're going to be under COVID restrictions for a while now. So you're eventually going to get bored and need something to do. If you're really into what we're doing and would like to support this podcast monetarily, you have 2 options for that. You can go to patreon.com/checkenginepodcast, or you can go to our homepage at anchor.fm, which is anchor.fm/checkenginepodcast. And right under our logo at the top of the page, there is a support button there. Every cent donated is put towards making this podcast a better experience for you, the listener. We don't pocket a single cent. This is not a venture for financial gain that we're doing here. It is strictly a passion project. So thanks in advance for that. Who are we giving special shout outs to before we get out of here?
Oh, shit. I forgot to think of one. Tristan, you go first.
So I'll start. I have one. It's a group of people I've thanked often in the past, but for yet another reason. I'd like to thank any of my friends, family, Jessica, etc., who have borne with me through this car buying process. Anybody who has been around me whenever I've made an important life decision, going back to school, accepting job offers, things like that, knows that I am incredibly reluctant to change anything, even if it's clearly going to be a better choice. Nick, I almost turned down the employment offer from our current employer because I was like, yeah, but that sounds like changing stuff. So, yes. Obviously, even though it's clearly better, all that kind of stuff, I'm a wreck when it comes to making decisions. So I would like to thank and apologize to anybody who happened to interact with me on this particular decision. It's clearly a fantastic decision, as I rambled for like 40 minutes about how great my car is. And thank you for bearing with me.
Very good. Andrew, do you have one, or you want me to go?
Go ahead.
I actually want to thank the Check Engine podcast co-hosts.
What do we do?
Well, I mean, I think for the first time since we started doing this, we have come together and laid out like a month's worth of episodes and content.
That is true. We did do
like
that.
We are set solid for another 4 or 5 weeks, and that never happens. Like, folks, for those of you who, well, you don't know our process behind the scenes. Like, we figure out what we're going to talk about roughly 48 hours before we get on to talk about it. Usually,
at least in explicit detail.
Yeah.
Yes. So, for whatever reason, stars have aligned and people liked everybody's ideas, and there's some other things happening that you'll find out here in another week or two. And all of a sudden, I just went through a list. I'm like, so wait a minute, we have this episode this week and we're doing this. And I laid out like 4 or 5 weeks, and it feels really, really good.
Yeah,
so thanks to you guys for coming up with great ideas and wrangling some stuff together. And to you fans out there, just stay tuned. We've got a really exciting month coming up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to be good.
So,
let's see. I'll just thank everyone who's still out there fighting for the social justice. Just because the news has stopped covering the protest doesn't mean they've stopped. I thank everyone who's out there fighting. We're not old by any stretch of the imagination. However, it is interesting to see a younger generation so passionate in a way that our generation is just not, because we somewhere along the line had it beat out of us. Actually, I know what it was. This, to have lived through the Wall Street thing and then to see this, it really makes our generation look like a bunch of fucking idiots. But in the best way possible. So thank you to the younger generation. Thank you to all the protesters. You are making the difference. You are making the changes. Everything that we see here is because of you.
Well put. And as always, thanks to those who listen to us every single week for your continued support. We love hearing from you. We love recording this for you, and we cannot wait to do this again. Stay tuned for some great stuff, as I mentioned, coming up in the next few weeks. But until then, take care.